It's Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, and we have a huge problem at hand. A very dangerous winter storm is about to develop in the southern United States, and this could be one of the biggest winter storms the region has seen in over 5 years. This storm could bring upwards of 20 inches of snow to areas such as Dallas, Texas, Little Rock, Arkansas, and even Nashville, Tennessee. Additionally, central Alabama is expected to see a significant amount of freezing rain. This storm may also create up to 1.5 inches of ice accumulation. While the snowfall might be the most exciting aspect, the potential hazards should not be overlooked. This storm will heavily impact travel, power infrastructure, and water pipelines due to freezing temperatures. The grocery store scramble has already begun, so make sure to hurry up and stock up on essentials from the grocery store to prepare for this major winter storm, as the South could be completely shut down for days. So in today's forecast, I will break down exactly what you need to know about this upcoming winter storm and why it's so dangerous. And we are going to be looking at up to 4 things today, such as the jet stream, the snow depth, the ice depth, and what all you need to do to prepare and why this is so dangerous. So right now I want to go ahead and begin with our jet stream, as this is what drives all of this snow and all the weather that we see into the United States. So starting off right now, we have this amount of colder air, like Arctic air, moving into the United States, which will bring all of this colder air that we are seeing to sort of freeze all this snow and sort of make it fall as snow instead of just regular rain. So starting off right now, this is what our jet stream's looking like. Nothing too crazy is happening. But as we move on later into the week around Wednesday, we have this sort of more Arctic air start to move down. And then as we can see, as we move on into Thursday and Friday, nothing too crazy is happening. And then this right here is what is going to be driving most of this through the central to southern United States, and especially the eastern parts of the United States. And this will continue through probably about Tuesday, January 27th, which will cause most schools to be out for over half of the week next week due to all of this significant amount of snow and ice that will be on the roads. As we move on into Wednesday of next week, this Arctic air continues to stay here, which will let the snow sort of stay on the ground for longer and not melt, as well as the ice, because we are not seeing any hotter temperatures as we move on into the end of next week. So that was all I wanted to look out for the jet stream today. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and take a look at the snow depth. This is in inches. So starting off as we move on into Friday, I'm not going to talk about what is happening right now, but as we move on into Friday, this is what things could be looking like. Nothing too crazy in the south for the snow depth, but snow does start to form up near Pine Bluff and Little Rock, Arkansas. As we move on into Friday, about mid to afternoon on Friday of this week, January 23rd, so 3 days from now, as well as parts of the Oklahoma Panhandle, which could begin to see some snow. And then as we move on later into Friday, this is when things really start to pick up, especially around the Pine Bluff and Little Rock, Arkansas, as well as parts of Wichita and Dallas, Texas, as well as parts very south of Norman, Oklahoma. And this does start to move into parts like Tupelo, Mississippi, into areas like Muscle Shoals in Florence, Alabama, into Memphis, Tennessee. And then we get some snow dustings down there in West Monroe, Louisiana. Some more snow begins to fill up areas like Dallas and into the Texas Panhandle. And then this sort of continues to stretch through about the Huntsville, Madison area in Alabama, through Nashville, Tennessee, into parts of northwestern and northeastern Georgia as we move on into Saturday evening. And then as we move on into Sunday and into Monday, we could be seeing lots of snow all around the south. While down here on this little hook right here, that is where we will be seeing most of the freezing rain, but we'll get more of looking into that in a minute. So Little Rock is pretty much covered in snow by this point, probably about up to 20 inches in all these darker, this lighter areas in the darker areas. So snowfall rates will be up very high, especially around Nashville, Little Rock, and even parts of Dallas, Texas, as well as parts of Oklahoma City as we move on into Monday morning and later on into Monday and on into Tuesday. But overall, that's when the storms start to sort of shrink down, and then all the snow will start to melt as we move on into Thursday. But the ice will continue to stay, as well as parts of snow in Little Rock, Dallas, Florence and Huntsville, Alabama, New Hope, Alabama, and into Peachtree, Georgia, as well as Nashville, Tennessee, and even parts of Knoxville. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our total freezing rain in inches, as this is sort of like the sleet that you would normally see, but instead it's just more intense. Alright, so as we move on into Friday, which is when the storm will really start to kick off, this winter storm, you can see freezing rain start to develop in parts of like Arkansas, Dallas, Texas, northwestern Louisiana, and into parts of like Tupelo, Mississippi. And then this stretches all the way up to areas like northern Georgia and into even parts of North Carolina and South Carolina as we move on into Saturday. But the main event will be around Dallas, Texas as of now onto Saturday. And then as we move on into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, this part in Alabama really starts to pick up. And this is what our main concern will really be for Alabama, which is just freezing rain. Because as we move on into Sunday and Monday, you can see how that gets darker and darker and darker. And if you look at the scale on the very bottom, you can see that up at the very top, around 1 and 2, which is the highest it goes on this map, is the colors are lining up with parts of Alabama too, which will bring tons and tons of freezing rain. Especially to parts of like Birmingham, Huntsville, New Hope, Alabama, as well as parts of Hackleburg and areas like Phil Campbell. And this will be a huge concern for Alabama, as Alabama and more areas in the South is going to be harder for them to clear the roads because there's not enough snowplows, as a chance for winter storms are more unlikely in the South. But there's already a line of snowplows already starting to make their way into the southern United States, especially power crews too, as all this ice will be insane in a significant amount, which will lead up to people with power outages, water pipelines freezing. But I do believe that this winter storm is the craziest that we have seen in up to 5 to 10 years in the South. But as we continue to move on into Monday and Tuesday, even into parts of Wednesday, this right here in parts of Alabama, if you look at this chart down here that my mouse is on, that is up here at the top of the chart, around number 2. So this is the max amount of total freezing rain that we have seen in a long time, as this is the highest it does go up on our scale. Alright, so now I want to go ahead and begin to talk about the safety issues and what you need to do to prepare for this. Starting off with what you need to do to prepare for this. You need to go to the store, go ahead and get every essential that you need to stay safe in this system, as you will most likely be snowed in or iced in wherever you live over the next few days on into next week. And pretty much most of next week as we go into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting off this week going into next week. Most schools will most likely be out for almost the whole week, if not up to Wednesday, especially in areas like Alabama and Nashville, Tennessee. So make sure you go get like your bread, milk, cereal, essentials that you need like that, just to stay safe and be able to eat. Make sure you have blankets. I recommend you buy like a little heater that you can just set on the ground that heats up the area, as power outages will be likely out of this system. If you don't have a generator, I would recommend getting one or just borrowing one from a friend. I know there is some places that will let you rent generators, but power crews are on the way to help restore the power lines and stuff like that as soon as they go out. So that's what you need to do in preparation for this. Now for the safety tips. I recommend you buy a bunch of blankets, like I said, heater, to stay warm, as it is not going to be safe to stay cold for this amount of time, and especially these temperatures. I am involved in this system, so if I will not be able to go live during the system, that is only because my power will be out, as well as if I don't post videos. However, I will try my best to keep the consistent video upload. I know I will not have a scheduled time anymore, but I will either post them after school, especially on weekdays, so times after probably about 4 to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you live in the areas I mentioned in the intro, like Dallas, Texas, Little Rock, Arkansas, or Nashville, Tennessee, you will be experiencing upwards of 20 inches of snow. So it is important to make sure you stay inside, and if you do go outside, make sure that it is not for a long period of time. Don't let your kids go outside and play in the snow for longer than 2 hours in the areas that aren't getting much snow or ice. Y'all can flame me in the comment section if I set a time that's too long, but however long you think is safe for your children, you can let them stay out there. Just make sure they're not out there for longer than 2 hours if the temperatures are lower than freezing. Just make sure you stay safe, stay heated. If you step outside without multiple layers on, you could get frostbite almost instantly with how cold it will be outside over the next few days as we move on into Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Things may change though. If they do, I will be here to give you more weather updates. So don't make sure to follow me for more weather updates. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.